After saving his wife from the spirit that attacked her, Uki sees the blue mark in her eyes and soon discovers that she is a soul changer. However, she refuses to reveal her true identity, and he also does not immediately recognize her as Naksu. When the prince appears, Uki protects and hides her eyes just as he did once before. The prince doesn't notice anything because he was too far away to see the mark. The trio starts working together, and Uki manages to grab the shining orb within that skeleton that was indeed an ice stone. The prince confirms that it belonged to the Choi family's sorcerer, who entered there a long time ago. But it's a different stone, somewhat counterfeit. It lacks the celestial energy like Uki's. It's simply empty and only serves to absorb human energy, like a soul changer does. So they prefer to leave it there. That's when Naksu realizes that the two beside her have been working together all along. The little turtle is in the prince's arms, who, in turn, is close to Uki, trying to hide that he's terrified of that place full of ghosts. The prince and Uki reveal to her that they did make a pact to help each other and deceive Jinmu. Their plan is to gather all the soul metamorphs that Jinmu created using soul injectors and then lure everyone to this secret line of his evil organization so that Uki can annihilate all of them at once. And do you know what was the prince's greatest motivation to ally with Uki? Of all the wickedness done by Jinmu, messing with the prince's beloved little turtle was the biggest mistake he could have made. Nobody messes with the little turtle. Now, as Uki's friend, the prince even provides free couple therapy sessions and love advice. As for Jinmu's plan, it is to gather his entire secret team to steal the Firebird and the Ice Stone to ensure eternal power for everyone, mainly for himself, of course. With the eldest daughter of the Jin family trapped inside that portal and Jin Yuan completely vulnerable, with no one strong enough to protect the gates, Jinmu would attack that very night and steal the Firebird. Naturally, the prince, being a good gossip, passes on the information to Uki, who sees his amulet shining, a very clear sign that it was calling for him. At that moment, the little turtle also makes an appearance, crawling to them as if asking for help. That's how they discover that an alternative portal has been opened that leads to the prison. Apparently, this was the work of the real Bu Yan, using her body and powers to open a portal, calling them to save her. Meanwhile, Lady Jin confronts Master Li about the lie he told about her daughter's soul being dead. He confirms that she survived, thanks to immense powers that even he can't understand. But despite not understanding, Master Li has his own assumption. Master Seo left the Ice Stone to save his beloved 200 years ago. But when this woman died, instead of destroying the Ice Stone, it was used to save a baby in Lady Jin's womb, Bu Yan herself. According to Master Li, the soul of the former priestess remained trapped inside the stone. In other words, Bu Yan is the very priestess. That's why both are blind from birth and have such similar divine powers. Lady Jin's reaction kind of implies that she already knew this from the beginning. Back at the portal, the prince talks to Naksu and admits feeling guilty for what happened to Mudeok. In his desire to have her for himself and do anything to be with her, he completely lost his reason and ended up causing harm to many people, including Uki, and especially to the woman he enjoyed getting to know. Now, he lives with shame and a great remorse that doesn't allow him to forget her. While listening to him talk about herself, Naksu conveys the message that the former Mudeok, whom he knew, would probably say. He shouldn't suffer forever, and she would be very happy to see that he and Uki are not enemies, but allies. Outside the portal, Yul discovers a potion that was with So-yi, the soul changer controlling and consuming Bell Potion. Yul quickly connects the dots and realizes that's why Naksu went mad. The queen also spent years taking this spell, but instead of helping, she chose to ally herself with the villain. When the people of Songrim ask her to cooperate, she reveals that she doesn't want to stop the soul alchemy. The queen wants soul alchemy to be an allowed sorcery, because then she could change bodies and have eternal power. Facing the sea and recalling everything they've been through, Uki finally realizes that Bu Yan and Naksu are the same person. Alone, they finally meet, knowing very well who they are but ignoring it. They know that Uki must do what is right, i.e. have the final battle against Jinmu and all the soul changers. The problem is that this would also include herself, as Naksu is also a soul changer. Even though both know it's the right thing, they question whether they should live there forever in that prison. She hesitates for a millisecond, but in the end, she knows it's morally wrong. What needs to be done must be done to end Jinmu's greed and eradicate all soul changers once and for all. Therefore, even if it's the most painful thing, they agree to pretend they don't know who they really are. This way, he wouldn't have to deal with the burden of having to kill her, while she would remain trapped there forever, just waiting for her time to come. Jinmu meets all the soul changers he created and tells them that the time of victory is approaching. Soon, everyone will see a dry land and the ice stone falling to give eternal power to all of them. With the prince's mocking smile, Jinmu realizes he's been played. The prince boasts about being about to show how powerful the new alliance he formed is. That's when we see Uki emerging from the portal and heading towards their hideout. In the secret room, he demonstrates how powerful he is, breaking magical barriers, dispelling illusions, and defeating 78 soul changers. Outside, Yule and other Songgrim mages defeat the remaining henchmen to ensure Uki reaches his final goal, who at this point is practically soiling himself with fear. However, Uki says that despite wanting it very much, this revenge is not his. Therefore, he pretends to let him escape, only to guide him to the prison portal, deceiving and locking him inside. There, he will face those who desire revenge against this despicable being the most, Naksu and Bu-yeon. With Bu-yeon's powers, Naksu places the empty and human energy-absorbing ice stone inside him. As a result, his life force begins to be drained until he reaches the point where he will be completely empty. Before leaving, the girl reveals that she is Naksu herself, watching the horror in his eyes as he withers away on the ground. With Jinmu defeated and all the soul changers dead, it seems like the fight is over, but the royal family is not happy about it. The king thinks Uki is conspiring with Songgrim to overthrow the monarchy, and the queen despairs at the realization that she will be trapped in the shaman's body forever. Meanwhile, Uki now has to deal with the freezing cold of 78 more ghosts hovering around him, unable to receive the warm and comforting embrace of his beloved, who remains imprisoned, awaiting death. Naksu takes the little turtle to the sea so it can live, but it swims away only to bring back Jinyuan's plate, allowing Naksu to escape from prison. To Lady Jin's dismay, who thought her true daughter would be back, she realizes it's still Naksu inside the body. Naksu talks to Yule, who relieves her of guilt, explaining that she only did what she did in the past because she was controlled by Jinmu's bells. After all of this, Uki decides to truly leave for the northern fortress to avoid trouble for the people who helped him. This includes his friends, Parjin, and Kim Do-ju. He bids farewell with sadness, saying that he may not be able to attend her wedding but wishing her much happiness. To make it less painful, Kim Do-ju convinces Parjin to move to the fortress right after their wedding, to live close to Uki. At night, the time comes for the unanimous assembly to gather, and since Bu-yeon managed to place the ice stone inside Jinmu, it means she can also remove it. Now that Uki has completed his task as a hunter, they want to remove the stone from inside him to prevent him from becoming too powerful, even if it means he will die in the process. To everyone's surprise, she agrees to do what they decided. However, she plays the last card she had up her sleeve, saying that there is one last soul changer that Uki has not yet killed. In other words, he still has work to do. Hunter and prey, husband and wife, lord and servant, pupil and master. As they stand in front of the great tree, they are just two people who love each other deeply, breaking down barriers and finally embracing, recognizing each other, returning to being as one, just like their amulets. At least for one night, Uki sets aside his status as a hunter, king star, and most powerful wizard to be just a man who wants to be with his great love. After seeing the blue mark, it's her eyes that he kisses first, to make it very clear who exactly is the woman he fell in love with. By kissing the eyes before the lips, he is kissing the soul of the one he has always been in love with, not just once, but twice. And they spend the night together, loving each other. Unfortunately, our joy is short-lived because at that moment, the queen and Yule's uncle are entering the prison to rescue Jinmu. They find Jinmu, who is already almost dead, But obsessed with power and blinded by despair, the queen asked him where the last soul injector was that could swap her soul into another body. And he replied that what she was looking for had always been inside her, as he had been using her all this time. He literally reaches into her, taking the injector from her body, cruelly watching as she dies. Furthermore, he steals Yule's uncle's body to save his soul. The two switch bodies, and Jin-moo now has a perfect disguise to return to the palace, revealing to the king that he managed to survive. Also obsessed with power, the king welcomes him with open arms, ignoring the death of his wife. Joining him are all the scoundrels of the unanimous assembly, who have always been plotting with Jin-moo, waiting for the moment to become immortal. The beginning of the end shows us Uki and Naksu making the most of their time together, living at least one day as a normal couple, strolling, smiling, playing, and doing the one thing they always desired, being happy together. They return to the cabin, and Master Lee devises a plan for them: marriage. He is there precisely to be the witness and show to the heavens that the two should stay together, and no one can separate them. They are taken to a beautiful place, surrounded by flowers. Uki has truly known all versions of her. He was Naksu's disciple, fell in love with Mudeok, was engaged to Bu-yeon, and is now marrying Cho-young, the name she chose, the name her parents gave her. He loved each version of her repeatedly, and it becomes clear as they radiate all the love they feel for each other, just by looking. His name, jae-wook, means light, and hers, Cho-young, means shadow. The two were destined to be together from the beginning. After the wedding, Uki finally fulfills his promise to take her to the top of the magnificent tree, promising that when the time comes for them to part, it will be with the unique love letter between them, the intertwining of fingers. However, unfortunately, the feeling that pervades is that all of this is the calm before the storm, because they don't know that Jin-moo has a new body and is back to wreak havoc on everyone's lives. He arrives to join the unanimous assembly, and they all have an insatiable desire for power and are pleased to encounter the transformed, greedy, and reckless Jin-moo. He immediately decides to invade Jin-yeon, steal the firebird to perform the rain ritual, and obtain the ice stone that would fall from the sky. But before that, he had to get revenge on the prince, who is shocked to learn that Jin-moo is back, and even more disappointed to see that his father, the king who should protect the country, is on the villain's side. The wicked king takes away his son's gold plate, meaning he strips the boy of the right to be the heir to the throne. The former prince still tries to warn his father to abandon this plan while there's time, because in the end, he will be just another pawn used by Jin-moo. Meanwhile, the amulet calls Uki, and he finds Naksu surrounded by a bright barrier. Upon entering, he sees the young Bu-yeon, who is actually the priestess. Instead of resting in peace after dying 200 years ago, she chose to have her soul trapped inside the ice stone to be reborn and save the world. She foresaw the future and knew that the chaos she witnessed centuries ago would happen again because of the greed of some. To try to prevent this, her soul was reborn in Bu-yeon's body to fulfill her mission on Earth. And now, within that barrier, she shows Uki what's coming. The firebird released, drying up and destroying the entire world. It was going to happen. It was inevitable. But to at least try to mitigate things, she devised a plan from the beginning. She attracted the shadow, i.e. Naksu, and hid within her, using her for a single purpose, to find the light, the king's star, i.e. Uki, who is the only one capable of preventing the world's catastrophe. Now that they have found each other, Naksu needs to step aside so that the priestess can take over the body and help him save the world. Meanwhile, the plan to destroy the world continues in action. Lady Jin finds her transmuted brother, attempting to invade Jin-yeon, and a moment later, she hangs her against the wall. Cho-yeon has no choice but to open the vault to protect her mother, and that's how Jin-moo enters and takes the firebird egg. However, upon removing the bird from inside, Jin-yeon begins to collapse, on the verge of crumbling. With a heavy heart, Cho-yeon obeys her mother's order to seek help and rescue the bird and leaves. But Kim Do-ju was there, and the two women watch in horror as all those dangerous relics escape. In an attempt to save the world, Kim Do-ju helps Lady Jin enter the vault to use all the remaining energy to contain more spirits from escaping. But when Park Jin discovers that his beloved wife is inside, he himself begins to collapse. He even tries to enter to save them, but the scary ghosts won't let him through. He realizes that the moral dilemma he and Kim Do-ju always talked about was happening before his tearful eyes. He had to choose between closing the door with her inside to save the world, or saving his beloved and letting the world be consumed. Tears stream down the eyes of both as Park Jin heeds her request and closes the portal, trapping the two women inside, having their last moments together, embracing and saving the world. Park Jin is consumed with anger and bitter resentment as he holds Kim Do-ju's ring in his hands. He is taken by Jin Moo to the unanimous assembly that dares to offer a power-sharing arrangement among all the kingdoms. Park Jin maintains his honor to the end and refuses to yield to their will. While he fights alone against Jin Moo's various henchmen, the coward only watches from afar without the courage to confront him directly. When Park Jin defeats all the henchmen, Jin Moo cowardly chooses to use magic to open the Firebird egg rather than face him. The problem is that more henchmen appear, and now Park Jin will have to fight with only one hand while using the other to protect the bird's barrier and prevent it from escaping. Jin Moo seizes the distraction opportunity from Park Jin and thrusts the sword into the honorable wizard's body from behind. While the cowardly villains flee, Park Jin uses his last breath to place the ring of his beloved Kim Do-ju on his pinky finger, just before losing consciousness and being consumed by the fire. When Uki arrives at the palace, finding everyone in tears, he is even more shaken to see that Park Jin, Kim Do-ju, and Lady Jin have been killed, and the three coffins are empty, as Park Jin's body was burned, and the two women were trapped among the debris. But Uki's lack of tears and calm demeanor reveal what really happened. Even after going through the apocalypse, Lady Jin survived, and Kim Do-ju is helping take care of Park Jin, who is also alive thanks to Master Lee's treatments. Now we discover what really happened. From the forest, Naksu saw the sky turning red and felt that Jin Yewon was collapsing. It was time for Bu-yeon to act, and consequently, for Naksu to cease to exist. She meets Uki, and the two share their last moment together, the final love letter. As they intertwine their fingers, they remember how their love completely defied all odds, and the last thing she says before falling into his arms is, "I love you." The priestess now commands the body with all her divine powers restored. It is thanks to her that Lady Jin and Kim Do-ju are alive. Many years ago, she created a secret alternative door to enter Jin Yewon, thus saving the two women. Meanwhile, Master Lee found Park Jin and, thanks to his great magical skills, prevented the wizard from dying due to injuries. As for Uki, he is left with only the memories of his beloved, without even having a moment of mourning because soon he needs to continue fighting to save the world. He encounters the former prince, who had no decision-making power left. But Uki changes that by handing over his gold plate, received from his real father, the late king, to the prince to regain the position he was always destined to have, the heir to the throne. Uki renounced power because he has already reached the highest place in the world, alongside the person he wanted. Uki is now ready and has his own plans. If the bird is going to be awakened anyway, at least it should be by his hands, so he could have control over what to do next. At night, the prince appears with his new gold plate, telling the king that the man he so feared, the true one born under the king's star, will put an end to all this nonsense. Dangu also springs into action using his bow and arrow while fighting alongside Songgrim's loyal soldier. The two clear the way for Yule to take the priestess to the right place, for Cho-yeon to get rid of the most dangerous runaway relics that hinder the plan, and for Uki to arrive just as the villains are gathering their magic to open the egg. Uki simply unnerves the guys while causing tremors in the ground with his sword and begins to awaken the bird, setting everything on fire and finally ending all those scoundrels. Dangu arrives amidst the flaming ruins, warning that the priestess is ready. She has reached the constellation basin of stars, and everyone has taken their places. she gathers all her power to awaken a giant fiery dragon, drawn into the final battle against Uki, who occupies the place that was once the stage of Naksu's epic battle. Everyone can see the dragon leaving a trail of fire through the city, including Park Shin, who is already showing signs of recovery. The dragon finally reaches Uki, who fights to kill it with the strength of his sword and using all his wizard powers. From a distance, the priestess continues to provide support as Uki uses the power of the Ice Stone and the King's Star to destroy the dragon with his arrow. After playing her part in saving the world, the priestess faints in front of everyone. After that, we see Bu-yeon's soul meeting Naksu's soul in a celestial space. Bu-yeon and the priestess decide to surrender their bodies so that Naksu's soul can continue to live. After all, she needs to return the shadow to the light that saved the world. A light that embraces the shadow will never be lost in darkness. The person we believe to be the true villain of this story ultimately sacrificed herself for the world's salvation. A year later, as we see her holding 2 twin babies, the already married Kim Do-ju feels nauseous, realizing that she is pregnant with Park Jin. The two celebrate while taking care of the couple Dang-gu and Cho-yeon's children, who have finally received Lady Jin's blessing, who even asks them to give her more grandchildren. Yul has become responsible for selecting and training new wizards, but not only those from prestigious families, but anyone with good energy and potential. The prince has now rightfully become the king. He remains unmarried but awaits the call of his favorite little turtle, who will help him find the perfect queen. And finally, the protagonist couple is living their best life together, climbing that tree countless times. She still lives as Bu-yeon because they would not accept Naksu's return. But the truth is that Naksu no longer exists. Now she is Cho-yeon. She is no longer a lonely egg at the top of the tree. She has become a beautiful bird and is together with her companion, with a bright future ahead. In the final scene, we see that the couple's life is not just about walks and kisses, as they are also on a mission together, to hunt and capture all the monsters and spirits that escaped from Jinyuon's relics. But they are united in this, and are happy protecting the population. The only living soul swapper, the shadow along with her light, they will remain together, and thus, neither of them will ever be lost or alone again.